good evening, readers. My name is Gina Schiano, and I am a board member of NJLA, New Jersey Literacy Association, and I'm so happy to be with you here this evening to read you a story. This is one of my all-time favorite stories. I say that about a lot, but this happens to be one of my all-time favorites. It's called Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain, and it's a folk tale. And we know that folk tales are stories that are told in the oral tradition. So they're not stories that really have been written down. They're from a very long time ago. And this story, Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain, takes place in Kenya, which is in Africa. And it's all the way on the east coast of Africa. So it's around the water, and during the year, there are rainy periods, and there are very wet periods and very dry periods. And we're going to read about a time on Kapiti Plain. It was a very dry period and really caused a lot of problems for the farmer there. Okay, so before we begin, I want to introduce you to two words. Okay, this word is overhead, and that's what it means, overhead. Something is going to be overhead on Kapiti Plain, and we're going to be listening for that. This word is belated. Belated. You often hear that when you miss someone's birthday and you say happy belated birthday. Just kind of means you're a little late to the party. So belated is another word we're going to be listening for. I also want you to be listening for the rhythms and the rhymes in this story because they are fun, and if you'd like to join in after a few pages, please feel free to do that. Join in and read the part of the story that you're familiar with, okay? So another thing we're going to be listening to in the story, besides the rhythm and the rhyme, are the story elements. We're going to be listening for the characters in the setting, the problem in the story, the events in the story or the plot, and the solution in the story. And the author, Verna Ardema, she does a terrific job of letting us know the characters and the setting right up front. And we're also going to be able to recognize the problem in the story. So we're listening for a few things. Let's listen for the rhythm and the rhymes, and please feel free to join in whenever you can. We have two vocabulary words, overhead and belated, which means a little late. And we're going to be listening to our story elements, okay? So let's get started. Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain by Verna Ardema, pictures by Beatrice Vidal. Bringing the Rain to Kapiti Plain. A Nandi Tale. For my librarian, Bernice Howard, and for my parents and for my teacher. This is the great Kapiti Plain, all fresh and green from the African rains. A sea of grass for the ground birds to nest in, and patches of shade for wild creatures to rest in, with acacia trees for giraffes to browse on, and grass for the herdsmen to pasture their cows on. But one year the rains were so very belated that all of the big wild creatures migrated. Then Kipat helped to end that terrible drought, and the story tells how it all came about. Well, our author, yes, you heard it, belated. But one year the rains were so very belated that all the big wild creatures migrated. I don't know if you saw me, I went like this. The creatures, the animals, are on the move. There's no rain because the rains were so very belated or late that grass wasn't growing, everything is turning brown, and the animals had to go away and find some other place where they can find some food. I think we also know the problem in the story. And let's read on a little bit. This is the cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti Plain. This is the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. You're right. Here's the other vocabulary word, overhead. Do you see this big rain cloud? That's what they need the rain to do. They need the rain to fall out of the rain cloud and onto the plains so that the animals can come back and we'll have some green grass to feed on. This is the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. The big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. These are the cows all hungry and dry who mooed for the rain to fall from the sky, to green up the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. The big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. And here's our character. Here he comes. This is Kapiti, who watched his herd as he stood on one leg like the big stork bird. Kapiti, whose cows were so hungry and dry, they mooed for the rain to fall from the sky, to green up the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. The big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. So right now, we're just going to pause for a moment. The author tells us who the characters are so far. So far, it's Kapiti, and the setting of the story is Kapiti Plain, which is this whole area, again, in Kenya, in Africa, that's going through a terrible dry season. So we're hoping that it starts to rain pretty soon. So does anyone know what the problem in the story is so far? Think about it just for a moment. You're right, it has to do with one of our vocabulary words, belated. The problem is that the rains were so very belated and that the grass was all brown and dead and the animals went away. We're going to start listening really carefully for the action that takes place now. What is Kapiti going to do? What are the animals going to do to hopefully get the rain to fall? Let's read on and find out. This is the eagle who dropped a feather that helped to change the weather. It fell near Kapiti, who watched his herd as he stood on one leg like the big stork bird. Kapiti, whose cows were so hungry and dry, they mooed for the rain to fall from the sky. I think I see an action already. I think I see one action. Those cows are mooing for the rain to fall from the sky. That could be one event in the plot of our story so far. That's a good action. Let's keep that in mind, readers. To green up the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead, the big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. This is the arrow Kapiti put together with a slender stick and an eagle feather, from the eagle who happened to drop a feather that helped to change the weather. It fell near Kapiti, who watched his herd as he stood on one leg like the big stork bird. Kapiti, whose cows were so hungry and dry, they mooed for the rain to fall from the sky, to green up the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. The big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. I see Kapiti doing something with that eagle feather. I wonder if it has to do with an action or an event in our story. Let's see. This is the bow so long and strong, and strung with a string, a leather thong. A bow for the arrow Kapiti put together with a slender stick and an eagle feather, from the eagle who happened to drop a feather that helped to change the weather. It fell near Kapiti, who watched his herd as he stood on one leg like the big stork bird. Kapiti, whose cows were so hungry and dry, they mooed for the rain to fall from the sky, to green up the grass all brown and dead that needed the rain from the cloud overhead. The big black cloud all heavy with rain that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. Excellent. Whoa. So I do see another event that's happening in the story, another action from Kapiti. So first the cows are mooing for the rain to fall from the sky. Next, Kapiti made an arrow from the eagle that dropped a feather. And then Kapiti shoots the arrow into the cloud. What do you see happening right here on this page in the story? What do you see happening? Yes, it's starting to rain. There are some water droplets. Let's see what happens. This was the shot that pierced the cloud and loosed the rain with the thunder loud. A shot from the bow so long and strong, and strung with a string, a leather thong. A bow for the arrow Kapiti put together with a slender stick and an eagle feather, from the eagle who happened to drop a feather that helped to change the weather. It fell near Kapiti, who watched his herd as he stood on one leg like the big stork bird. Kapiti, whose cows were so hungry and dry, they mooed for the rain to fall from the sky, to green up the grass all brown and dead, that needed the rain from the cloud overhead, the big black cloud all heavy with rain, that shadowed the ground on Kapiti plain. So the grass grew green and the cattle fat, and Kapiti got a wife and a little Kapiti. And I see the animals are back and they're grazing on the grass, and Kapiti looks so happy to have his family, and the grass on Kapiti plain looks so green and beautiful. Who tends the cows now and shoots down the rain when the black clouds shadow Kapiti plain? And so the solution of the story, let's think about how the story ends. Yes, his plan worked, right? His actions worked. The grass grew green and the cattle fat, and Kapiti got a wife and a little Kapiti. And the grass was green on Kapiti plain. I hope you enjoyed the story as much as I enjoyed reading it to you. What I would like you to do next, if you'd like, is to think about the story. You can draw a picture of Kapiti and draw a picture of Kapiti plain. You could draw it maybe first when the rains were very belated, and then after when the rains fell and were all green and the cattle grew fat. So I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to reading again and again to you. Thank you.